Okay, so this is my 2010 BMW Z4 3 litre and I'm going to put heated rear seats in it, but I'm going to use an aftermarket kit rather than buying the BMW ones. So the first thing you'll do is take the battery. Well, the first thing you'll do is, if you have electric seats that go forwards and back, to get to the bolts, you can see that the bolts here, they're torque bolts, and they are T50 torque bolts. Now, if you've got electric seats that move forwards and backwards, you're going to have to keep the battery in while you undo those. But I don't. I have normal hand-operated seats, so I'm okay there. But the important thing is, when you remove the battery, is to make sure that you have the door open so that the window is down. And the second thing is, once you remove the battery, don't shut the boot, because you won't be able to open it again. Well, you can. You can put a jump start battery on the terminals under the bonnet, and it works the battery fine. Works the boot fine, but you don't really want to be doing that. So, first thing, out it comes, and battery removal. Okay, so that's the battery disconnection. I like to disconnect both terminals, just in case something happens, nothing worse than that. But anyway, now we can go and take the seats out. So as you can see, the window's down, which is good, unless it rains. What we're going to do is push the seat all the way back and take out these 4 torque bolts. There's 2 at the front, one around the other side, and then there's 2, oh, a bit of rubbish there. And then you slide the whole seat forwards, and there's 2 at the back. Okay, so that's all the 4 bolts removed, and once you've got the 4 T50 torque bolts removed, you can then just bring the seat up and angle it slightly up, because the next thing you want to do is remove this seat belt. So there's a plastic cover here that you just put a little screwdriver behind it, pull it, and it does ping off. It pings off at the back, so you want to get it at the back and pull it, and then pull it backwards, and you can see there's a lid at the front. And there it is. You've just got another. Just get my ratchet. You've got another T50 torque slot there. 1 bolt to remove, and the seatbelt comes off. There you go. So, bolt removed, seatbelt just lifts off. Store those. So there's 4 torque bolts and 1 seatbelt. Now the next thing you want to do is to unplug it from underneath, and underneath you can see, you can't really see very well, but there is one connector that goes to the seat, and the way that removes, I don't think I can angle this up much more actually. So, but there's a slider that you have to slide the slider out, and then the connector at the front pulls off to the front. And there you go, the seat just lifts out. So this is the connector that comes off. That's it, just the 1 connector. So we can leave the car and shut the car up. Now the window won't close, so I do have a cover that I'm going to put. I have a cover that goes on the roof, so that's it. And I will leave the boot open. Well, not open. I'll put a cover over that as well. But don't close the boot, otherwise you won't be able to open it. Well, not easily. And there you go, there's the BMW covered up with the boot open. Now, I don't think it's going to rain tonight, so I think we'll be safe. Very murky, very cold, but I don't think it's going to rain, so we'll chance that. Weather report looks good. All it means, we've got to do this in a day. That's the CBX. It's looking good. And there's the seat on my workbench. Now, I don't have a very big workbench. Ideally, you want a big workbench, but it's going to be clean, obviously, because I've just put this bit of plasterboard on it just to make it clean. And I'm going to put a cover over the vise and a cover over the the workbench because you don't want to get this leather dirty. And I have to tell you, these seats are not light, so be very careful. So, right. Okay, so before we go any further, I thought we'd just have a look at the tools we'll need. So, what you'll need is there's two plastic trim fasteners on the rear plastic panel on the seat. So you'll need a trim fastener. Probably get away with a large flat-bladed screwdriver, but it's much easier if you've got one of these. And I'll tell you, if you're doing body work, you need a set of these. You need a pair of decent snips, obviously. A couple of screwdrivers. Marker pens are very useful. Definitely need a pair of long-nose pliers. And these are the specialist tools that you need. You need a T25 Torx and a T50 Torx. But you'll need a pair of cutters. These are hog tie cutters. Now the whole seat is put together with these hog ties. And these hog ties go in your fastener like this. And as you crunch them in, it turns them into a tiny ring. And the whole seat covering is put together with these. So to get the seat apart, we're going to take off these plastic trims, both sides, and then we're going to remove the base seat. And predominantly to remove it, it means cutting those hog ties. Now this is the kit I'm going to fit. This was a cheap kit. This was £24 for both sides, and for £24 you get two mats. Now I've already fitted the mats to the passenger seat, so I've done this once already. Now these mats, when I plugged them in on the bench with a power supply just to see if it was all working, there's two settings. In here you get, you opened it earlier, so in here it's a very good kit, and I have to say it's put together really well. You get your switch with two settings. It's got a relay on there, and the connectors for the plug-in, one into the seat pad and one to the back pad, which are here. Now, as far as I can make out, when I tested this on the other seat, when you've got it on double heat setting, it draws about 3 amps at 12 volts, so that's 36 watts. And when you've got it on one setting, it draws about 1 amp, so that's 12 watts. So they're not powerful seats. They're just going to, even on double setting, it's probably only just going to take the edge off the chill. 36 watts is not a huge amount. 12 watts is even less. But anyway, these are the pads. Now the nice thing about these pads, the way they work, I don't know if you can see here, but you've got one wire going to one side, one wire going to the other side, and up the side here you've got these oh, excuse me, like power rails. Oh dear. Now you can cut holes in this pad, and that's fine because each one of these tracks is fed by the power rails, so you can cut slots in and chop them. You just can't chop through the sides. Now I found that these were slightly too wide, but if you look at it in the light, the power rail pretty much runs under the middle of this white tape. So you've got I trimmed off 10mm either side, and then I cut various holes in the side. So the idea is that if we get one pad, that the pad will sit, sort of like that. Now the pad's too long, so you can chop the end off without any problem at all, because the power rails are still there. So I chopped a good 2 inches off the end of mine. You obviously can trim around the bottom here, but you can't trim these wires, and you can't cut through here. So there are points which have hog ties, which is here. Underneath that, so there's a bar running underneath that's held to the base. So obviously you cut a big hole through here, and so the bar can go in there, but you can't cut through the sides. Don't cut through the sides, otherwise it won't work. Anyway, the kit was £24. I have to say, It's not a super powerful kit, as I say, 36 watts, but it does work. You know, it does take the edge off. It definitely gets warm, and incredibly cheap and very well made. So, on with the seat. Okay, so oh dear, spanner's fallen out. So first thing I'm going to do is take out this T25 Torx bolt, and that's the only bolt. Then this whole side panel then pings off. You've got to take off your side connectors here. Maybe I'll prop it up. But first thing is we're just going to take off this T25 bolt. Right, so the next is we're just going to remove the remove these two levers. Now to do that, we have to get a screwdriver in, and you just pry open that thing, and then it should lift off. We'll do that to both sides. I'll do the other one in a minute. But then you need to get the side panel on. Now this side panel is held on by, you can see in there, just get the screwdriver. Oh, lost the light. Can you get the light better? Oh, you can sort of see in there. Oh dear. You can see there's a little clip just there. Now, the best way of doing it is if you can get something underneath there and prise it out open, then you can then get the side panel off. Right, so I've taken the other handle lever off. Now to get these off, I've actually what I did is I just couldn't pry the plastic back, so what I've done is to actually put a screwdriver on there and just hammer these tags flat so that I could prise off the panel. Before we fit the seat, we'll just bend these back out again. So next thing is just to remove the what's that, the lumbar support, I suppose, wire, and we're done. Right, so big thing, have to get yourself a pot so that you can put in all of the screws that you take out and keep all your plastics together. Right, so next we'll do the other side. Actually, no panel on the other side, so that's useful. Okay, so this is the underside of the seat. So the first thing we're going to do is to remove the seat pad. Now this is not an easy thing to do, but we've got this I don't know what do you call it, plastic clip. You pull down on that, pull down this plastic clip, and then that way, and then that flops open. There's a couple of little ties that you have to take off. 1, 2, get them up off your camp. Oh, we'll unclip that in a minute actually, because that won't quite come off. And same on the other side. And then we have our first hog ties to chop. So I'll just do this, and then we'll find those hog ties. Okay, so with those two little side bits removed, we can now push the back of the seat cover through the gap. It is a bit tight, but you just push it through. Be careful not to rip the foam. Now if this is a passenger seat, you'll have there's a bar that gets on here with 2 rings. I haven't got a clue what it's for. It's probably for fastening a child's seat or something like that. But anyway, if it's the passenger seat, you have to remove the bar first. It's a lot easier to remove it. And it has like these 2 square hoops on it, which I presume for attaching the seat. But driver seat, you don't get that. But next thing we're going to do is, see this trim that runs all the way around? Well, we're going to take that off. Now there's a plastic trim at the front, that just has these 3 little clips, 1, 2, 3. You push down with a screwdriver and it just pings off. So I'm going to take the plastic trim off first, and then I'm going to unhook. This is another connector, a bit like this one at the top. It's just a piece of edge steel running around there, and you just pull it off. It's not the easiest thing to get off, but it does come off. Okay, so this is the piece of trim that on the front that just has these 3 clips. And you can see there that you just push the clip in and it pings off. The middle one, I don't know why, it's just a locator. There is no clip on that. So it's just the 2 outers that you have to unclip, and then the middle one just pops off. So that's that bit stored. So now we're going to take off this whole trim. Okay, so as you can see, we've managed to release this trim all the way around both sides. And now what we're going to do is we should be able to flop up the whole base, which is what we're going to do. But under this pull-out front, there's a bar that needs to be pried off, and that's tricky. So you can see where I've pushed the foam and the back of the seat through. We've unclipped the sides now, and the whole back will now lift off, but it is secured by a bar that runs down the front of this trim. And it's that bar, when you put the seat together, literally pushes in, and it holds this flap of seat covering leather down so that you don't get a gap. But to get it out, you have to go from underneath, get a screwdriver and prise the bar out. Now, when I did this on the first seat, it didn't come out too easily, and it didn't feel like it was right that it comes out. But I have to say, when you come to push it back in, it just goes clip, 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 straight back in. So I think that was okay. So that's what we're going to do. So if you just pull the seat cover up gently, you'll see that the front of it is connected by this long bar that goes all the way down. Now this is just to push fit in. Pushing it in is fine when you come to put it back together. Prying it out's tricky. I managed to get a screwdriver one end, and once you've got one end out, you can push it all the way along, and then eventually that comes out, and that's the last thing that's holding the seat on. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start off in this corner. We're going to get a screwdriver underneath there and just basically pull this bar out. Okay, so just thought I'd show you. So I've got 2 out of the 6 clips that hold it, and basically just ran a screwdriver along there, gradually levered it out. So I shall carry on. Right, so that's my so you can see there the front piece of trim is now off, and all we're going to do to take the base off is it's just looped around this front extension. So we're going to put the seat upright, push it over the loop, and it should come off. There you go. So seat's now upright, and we are just going to now pull the seat over the extension, and there you go. One seat pad removed. Now the first thing I'm going to do actually is fit the heating pad to the seat pad. Doesn't really matter which way around you do it, but I'm going to do that bit first because that's what I did last time, and then once we've done that, then we can take the rear, the upright cover off, and we'll fit that. But seat pad first. The seat can just stay there next to the Bandit, and we're going to work on the seat pad now. Now this seat pad, obviously we want to get, we're going to take this out from the back, so we're just going to undo the seat covering from the back, just so that we can put the pad underneath here. Now, so these are these hog ties. Now, I'll give you an example. That is an example of a hog tie there. You can see ones at the front. We're not going to cut the ones at the front. We're just going to cut the ones at the back so you can get in there. Now, this all seems very serious stuff, but I have to say these things are really easy to replace. You don't replace them, you cut them and then you put new ones in. So that's why we need to have our hog tie ready and our cutting tool and our hog tie crimping tool. But essentially you just get your cutting tool and you cut it. And that's that. Now, I tried to make sure I retained all the bits, because nothing worse than sitting on a sharp bit. But anyway, cut these off, cut that one off, and the same on the other side, and then we'll get into the inside. Okay, so that's my 4 hog ties cut, 2 on that side and 2 on this side, and obviously you get lots of these half debris. So at some point we're going to have a bit of a clear up. And this is now what you think would be the tricky bit. It's not that tricky actually, but running under here, there's a pipe that runs under here, a pipe that runs under here, and a pipe that runs under here, and they are basically hooked between the pipe which sticks to the leather and the base with these hog ties. Now, to get to the hog ties, you separate the material from the foam, and I know this looks a bit tricky, but down there you should be able to see a hog tie, and you basically cut it, and the same on the other side. Now it all looks probably a bit tricky from here, but it's not that difficult. You just get the tool in there and cut them off. So there you go. So you can see I've just snipped the hog tie off, and there's a bit left on here that I remove, and there's a bit left on there that I remove. So you do that, and there's another one down there, chop that off as well. So take those 2 off here and 2 on the other side, and then that should give us halfway down the seat. Okay, what I've actually done is I've just undone one hog tie up the back there and the other on the other side. I left the second one because we might be able to get away with not having that. But anyway, it gets you down to the second part of the seat, where you can see that, I don't know if you can see this one, this bar is held in by more hog ties. I'm not quite sure how many there are. 3, I think. So we're going to cut those 3, and that should allow the centre of the seat pad to lift up. Okay, so that's my 3 hog ties cut. Make sure you remove all of the debris from there. So that's my 1, 2, 3. You can see there's another bit of debris that needs to be moved in there, and then you should get access to the seat pad. Now, I didn't think I was going to take off on the other seat. I took off that last hog ring, but I'm not going to do it this one. I'm going to try and slip the pad down there. So this is the pad I'm going to use. Now, it's obviously too long, so unfortunately not too wide, which is good. Maybe a little bit at the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off a little. I obviously can't trim the back, and there's no point having seat heating much past the actual trim. So I'm going to line up the last heater on the back, and then I'm going to get my marker pen and trim it off at the front. So I would think somewhere around there ish. So we're going to cut that whole front off. There's my pad with the bit chopped off the front, which is not looking too bad. So we're going to slide that in and check it for fit. so when we slide it in, there's it's got like an insulated layer on one side and a more accessible layer, and then we're going to have it this way up. I'm trying to push this in and I am having slight access difficulty, so I am going to cut these other two hogs rings off both sides. Okay, so with those other two hog rings cut off, I've got a lot better access. And now you can see this bar that runs down the middle with the three points, which gets hog tied down to this metal strip that runs all the way through. Now I'm just going to push this pad all the way up to the front here and check it for fit. Okay, so that's the pad pushed all the way up to the front there. Bit tricky, you know, you get your fingers in there and knead it down, but you just slide your hand in and you can knead it all the way to the front. Takes a bit of time, a minute or so, and that looks like the trimming was pretty good because this is sitting right at the back, so that's good. Now the next thing we've got to do is this bar here, we've got to hog tie it down. So now I tried this once, just cutting little squares through so I could put the hog ties in there, there and there, but the seat pad didn't, it provided too much resistance to get a neat edge, and this edge was very weak. So what I did is I actually took it back and then I cut a strip all the way across. Obviously don't cut the sides because that's where your power lines are, but you can cut a strip pretty much across. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut in from the edge ever so slightly. Bear in mind I'm going to put this up to the light and find out where my power line is running along here to make sure I don't cut through that. I'm then going to cut a slit all the way across here and then another slit at the end. So I'm going to leave my power rails intact at both sides. Now, to make sure I get it right, I'm going to mark it with a marker first. So I'm going to get my marker and I'm going to put it exactly where these It's marked it alright, and we'll draw that on later. So I'll take the pad out now and we'll do our cutting. Okay, so this is our pad. Those are all our hog tie debris, and there's the bit of pad we cut off. And what we're going to do is, there's one marker and there's the other marker. Now I don't know if we put this up to the light whether you can see this, but you can see a power rail running down there. Not very well from here. I can see it a bit better visually. It's a faint black line that runs all the way down the middle of this tape. So I've got probably 10mm I can cut in from this side, and I can go 10mm up here, and there's a 10mm power line running straight down this tape. So what I've got to do is to cut in from here about like that, cut in from the other side about like that, and then I'm going to cut all the way across there, probably a little bit into these as well. Okay, so this is my cut. So I've got I'm going to try and get one hogging in at one end, one hogging ring at the other. There'll be a hogging in the middle, and of course there'll be a bar that runs down the side of this. Now obviously the bar will have to go underneath the bits at the end, so what will happen is we should get a fairly nice fit at the beginning, and the ends will ride up, but they ride up anyway, so it's not too bad. So now I can push my pad back in, and we should be able to start hog tying it back up and reassembling. Okay, so I've pushed the pad back into the seat again, and now you can see there's the cut, and the bar is great. It lines up perfectly with the cut, so the bar is going to go down there. Now what we're going to do now is put it back together. So this is tricky, but you know, you just have to, this is where your long nose pliers come in, because we're going to take one of our rings like this, and we're basically going to clip it between that bar at the bottom around here and around the longitudinal bar on the seat pad. And once we've got it clipped in place, then we're going to get our pliers and squidge it into a tiny little hole to cramp it together. That's the idea. It is tricky, but it's easier than you think. So, after a bit of struggling, you can see I've got my clip in place. I found it easier to clip it onto the base first and then clip it around the seat. And now I'm going to put a pair of pliers in and squidge it closed. And there you can see, without, well, you probably can't actually. There's my new hog tie clamped closed, and we carry on. So what I'm going to do that, I'm going to do the other one on the other side, and then I'm going to do the 3 on that bar. Okay, so hopefully you can see that I've got one hogging ring just in position there in that little slot. And I'm just going to crimp it up, and then I'm going to do one in the middle and one on the other end. And so sometimes I do find it's easier just to get one of the rings and just nip it up a bit before I put it into the seat. It just makes get it onto the tool a bit easier in a confined space. Okay, so that's got my 3 hogging rings in, and you can see there you've got a fairly nice crease in the middle of the seat. Now, we knew we weren't going to get a perfect seat at the end, because crease at the end, because we can't go through the power lines, but it's not bad. I think that's acceptable. This is, we're going to do these well, last 2 hogging rings either side, and then we're pretty much done for the seat cover. Okay, so that's the seat cover completed, all nicely tied down, and except for wanting a slight clean, I think. There you go. So that can be put aside now, because we need to do the back pad first. But not bad. Nice line. And so, next job, now we've got the seat pad done, is to do the seat back. So what we're going to do is take off this plastic cover. There are 2 plastic, I don't know what you call them, trim holders that need to be taken out. You can maybe see them, there they are. So there's one there. Right there. They need to be popped out, and then the whole back slides down and off. No other fixings. And there you go. So there's the 2 fixings that we just popped out, plastic fixings, and the cover there, which just slides down and away. So what we're going to do now is, there are 3 parts of this. There's this clip unclips as you go. That was easy. As you there, and then it slides out of here. Now that slides down like that. There you go. And this one slides out as well. Super duper. And then that gets, I think, pushed out the front. Let me just check. Okay, so that's the top removed, the 2 side stairs out, and I've just pushed it through there. But what I need to do now is, there are another 2 rails. There's one down here and one up the top, and these are very similar to the seat pad. You need to just pull them off, and just to release them. There you go. So a bit of a struggle to get these off. You really need some tool actually that you can clip underneath, and with a handle that you can pull, but with a screwdriver it does ping off. That's it. So I'm going to do the same with the other side. So that's that other side released now as well. There you can see the airbag unit. which we don't want. Now we don't actually want to take the foam cover off. We just want to take the seat cover off. Now there is, this does just ping off there actually. There's a couple of hog ties, usual things. Now where are they? There. You can just see that there. You need to cut that hog tie, and the same on the other one, and that will allow you to take the cover off the foam backing. I say when you do this, you have to orientate the seat quite often, and the seat is not light, so be careful with your back. And this is where a bit more space would be good, but you don't want to do it on anything that's not gonna don't do it on a table or anything, because these metal runners are killers. You can see where it's gouged the plastic on my desktop, on my bench here. So have a put a piece of plywood down or something, because these runners are wicked and this seat's heavy. But anyway, you can see there where I have chopped the hogging ring off, and so now this seat cover should come away, hopefully, from the foam. What I'll do is I'll just stand the seat back up and we'll pull the cover off. So, cover's loose on both sides. Usual problem, got a bar running up here like you did on the seat pad, bar running up here on the seat pad, bar running across, and we need to, there's probably 1 or 2 hogging ties there and probably 3 there. They all need to be cut. So if I look here, you can just see, oh there's one. So there's a hog tie. So you just cut them all off, up here, across, so that we've got access to slide our pad. Now I'm not going to cut the top ones because our pad's only going to go up to this point here, which is in the small of the back. So it's only going to cover these first lower 2 panels. Okay, that is hard work, hard on the hands, and I'll tell you, you won't be able to do this job without a pair of these. Absolutely essential. But anyway, I think I cut off 1, 2, 7 hogging ties. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and now this gives you access all the way up inside the panel. So I'm now going to find my panel wherever I put it, over here on Trusty Bandit, and we're going to start putting it in. So I reckon it's a pretty good fit actually. Do I want to, the thing is, do you want to trim it off a bit? It's well, for starters, it's a bit too wide. It's about 15-20mm too wide, so I'm going to cut 10mm off each side. Bear in mind, you don't want to cut down the power line, but I can see the power line. I can see it here. If you hold it up to light, you should be able to see the big rail. And they've got 10mm easily of clearance where you hit it, 10mm on the other side, so I'm going to cut that off. And I'm probably going to trim this off because I want my heat to go all the way to the very top. And I think it's going to fit to the bottom anyway. So I'm 10mm off this side, 10mm off the other side, and trim across the top. My pad trimmed up, so you can see it sits much better inside now. That's where it's going to sit in the seat. I know it doesn't make much sense there. It's going to sit like that sort of thing. So next job is to actually, which we've got the right way up, we're going to lift the seat up and push the pad up inside. Okay, well, that's our pad. Let's pan back a bit. Pushed all the way up to the top here. You can get your fingers right the way up. So the next thing is to mark it up, because what we're going to do is the same as the seat pad. When we hog tie this bar down, which is underneath here, we're going to cut a piece off the end to put one side, and then a big slot in the middle and a bit on the end, so that this forms a nice groove like this. So first thing we do is we mark it up. Find our trusty Sharpie marker pen. And you can see the pad, there's the groove underneath. So I'm just going to mark up a line down here so we can cut it later. Okay, so there's our chair. Always looks a bit distressing at this point when everything's a bit crinkly, but have no fear, it will all go back fine. There's our pad. So remember, we trimmed off about 10mm on this side, 10mm on this side, and the top, and it fits in there perfectly. This is the line of our bar, so I'm going to chop off. Now this is tricky, because bear in mind we've trimmed this down to the power rail, so we can't go any further. So I'm going to chop a section out of the middle, and we're going to put one hog ring on the inside there, another there, and one in the middle. We're not going to do what we did before, because if we did that, we chop through our power rails. Do not chop through the power rails. Okay, so I've held this up to the light, and I can see my power rails are about 5 to 10mm in. So we're going to cut this section out across the middle here and go into the tape by probably 5 or 7mm, and then we're going to put hogging ring, hogging there. Okay, so that's my little strip cut out. So next thing, it's back in, shove it up to the seat. Now the pad is back in the seat, and you can see there that there's our cut, and it's oh, a bit of a hogging ring. Get rid of that. So you can see that that cut lies nicely in there, and that bar is going to slip in. So the bar should slip in nicely. So next thing is, got to hog and tie it down again. Okay, so we've got the pad fitted now. We're just putting these last few hog ties in. What we're going to have to do is, to stop this bar pushing down on the side thing, we're going to have to cut this webbing here, so that we can slide it underneath this and cut it on this side as well. Yeah, so you can see so you have to just cut this on the end, so that this now slides underneath the end power rails, and the same at this end here. Now we can attach the 3 hog ties. Okay, so that's my hog ties now fitted. The 3 hog ties for the what do we call it? Crease. So looks okay. Looks good. So I'm just going to fit the last. How many have I got to do here? Oh, 2. So I've got 2 hog ties fit on that side and 2 on this side, and then the cover will be the outer cover will be tied in. Well, as you can see, we resorted to loud music and an after dinner drink just to get these last bloody hog ties in. They are awkward, so I'll put them all in, well, all but the last 2. So we've got that one in the end to go in, and obviously this one here. These are the ones that really test your patience, but here goes. Okay, better turn the music off because YouTube will probably block me. So all the hog ties are in, and it's looking quite good now. Stretching it back. So we're going to push this back underneath. This is what's got to left do. There's probably 2 hog ties that's got to go in now. We've got to push this under and connect these 2 last hog ties, put these clips back on, and then the cover's on. So not much more to go, but you know, this is what, 3 hours into it, maybe a bit longer, so it's quite a bit of work. Okay, so I pushed it all back under, and it's looking a bit saggy because what we've now got to do is to go around the back and connect these, stretch these back up. But first, what we're going to do is connect these last 2 hog ties. Okay, so that's the back all tied on. Don't forget to slip your sliders up both sides before you clip it on at the top. I cut a little hole in the base there for the wire to come out. That'll obviously join the pad. So that's it now. It's looking, I don't think you can see the other side, but yeah, it's looking okay. Reasonably stretched over now. I'm just going to put the back back on, slide the back in and up, put my 2 plastic trim holders on, and that'll be the back done. Okay, so back on, 2 trim bungs in, wire coming out the base, all set for put the pad on now, I suppose. Okay, so that's the seat all back together. To be honest, pretty much like it always looked like. BMW leather always seems to ruckle up a bit, but you know, I think that's pretty good. So I'll just back off a bit. Looks crinkly in the picture. It always looked like that actually. That seems to be BMW seats, always seem to have this sort of weird crinkly look to them. There you go, so time to put the pad on. Okay, so this is our seat pad that we did earlier with the wire, and basically it's just a reverse fit. We're going to loop that around the front, push this down the back, clip this all around the edge, and take it from there. Okay, yeah, so one thing I forgot to tell you about, once you've got the pad in, I've just pushed the back round and underneath. You've got to connect this back up. So this plastic bar has got to fit in. You can't really see it very well, but if you've got one of these seats, you can just see the long rim that it fits in, and literally you place it up, put a screwdriver on top of it or something soft on top of it, push it down, and it clips in. Okay, so it's difficult to describe how that pushes in, but basically you just push it in with your fingers. I didn't even use anything else. Push it down. There you go. It's all nicely in, and this still works, which is great. Yeah. So I think the next thing is we're going to put this, turn the seat on its back, and pull this trim round, clip it on. Okay, so that's all the trim pressed in. Looking good. So we've got to just go around the back of the seat and just do a bit of tidying up work there. Okay, so that's the 1, 2, 3 bits of trim put in on the back of the seat. Just do the bits for the other side. Okay, well, some people probably said I should have routed this cable through the back of this trim, but trust me, it doesn't matter. You can't see anything behind these seats. So I think that's pretty good. I just clipped it in there. So now you've got these 2 ends to put the to connect up eventually. That is about it. And there you go. One BMW seat back to a well, almost original position. I've just got to put these side panels on. I'm just thinking though that somewhere I've got to install a switch for these seats, and rather than trying to reroute the wires into the dashboard or through the sort of centre console, I'm just wondering about sticking a the switch, some little metal brackets, so that the switch is just down here. I mean, this is a soft top. I don't suppose the seats are going to be on that often. Okay, so don't forget to bend the tabs out that we tapped in at the beginning. The side plastic, it slides on. There's a locator at the back that slides on, so you slide it on, push it back on. All looking good. But you can put your handles back on. Don't forget your T25 Torx nut that goes on there, and we're pretty much there then. Of course, once you go back into the car, you're going to have there's a bit of trim that goes back on, but you know, once you put the seatbelt on, but we're pretty much done there. So there you go. Pads fitted into a heating pads fitted into a BMW Z4 3 litre I. Okay, so driver's door's finished and driver's seats finished, passenger seats finished. We've got to consider now where to actually put the switches. Now, before I put the seat back in, I thought I'd tackle the wiring. So what I've done is I've taken out the centre console, which is dead easy. You pull really hard on the gear knob upwards. Try not to lose any teeth, but it is a bit of a pull and it pops off. Then to get the gaiter off around the gear knob, that's fairly simple. You just put a little tool in at the front of it and pop it off. It comes off very simply. And then to get the actual centre console off, you just pull it up and it unclips. So we're at a stage here now. It's finding a bit of space where to put these switches. The switches are 20mm in diameter, they're round, and about 35mm protruding underneath. Now I'm thinking, looking at the space there and looking at what we've got underneath here, that there's not a lot of places. It looks quite open, but when you start looking at it, there's it's tricky. So what we do have though, I did consider putting a switch here and a switch there, and it might work, but I did measure and it has this bit of plastic over here which is only about 25mm down, so it's not quite enough. And the only place I've found actually is here. I can get two switches in here, which means that they would be two switches here. Now I know it's not left and right where you'd ideally want them, but strange enough, that's the only place I could, well, it's not the only place I've found. I could put them here, either side. I think there's enough room for there. Downside is I'd have to run the cables along both sides, and with the gear knob being there, and there's not a lot of room, and they're quite thick cables, so here is not bad, and it does mimic the switch. So that's the idea at the moment. That's where they're going to go. So now I'd ideally want to bring the cables in at the back and run them along. So that's what I'm planning to do, is to try and see if we can just take this console off. So here's the tray. I made this tray actually. This was just an ordinary tray which had all of the cup holders in it and a piece of this, and I just basically cut it out and hot glued it all back together and made a nice. Got this off a craft store, so that's going to come. So I'm going to take this out, probably take that big screw out and see what happens. Okay. Well, having taken all the console out and looked at it, my idea was that I was going to run the cable through the back here, because this lifts up. All you've got is two screws at the back, one screw in the middle there, and the whole thing lifts up. It's fine. So I was going to run the cables underneath here, put the switches over here. However, after thinking about that, when you try and drill two 20mm holes in your dashboard, it's always a bit distressing, and I've had a rethink, I'll show you what I've done. Back on the bench. What I decided to do is, here's the panel. I was going, the place I found best to mount switches is just here. So I was going to put the 2 switches there. I think it probably would have worked okay, but it was millimetres of clearance, and trying to, once you've drilled 2 20mm holes in your panel, if it didn't quite work out, that would be a bit annoying. It's not as though you can put rubber plugs in or anything. So I looked at the seat and thought, oh, the other thing was, if I put the switches here, I would have to adjust the wiring loom, because the wiring loom wasn't long enough. Now it's only 4 wires, but four wires don't do it. It's 8 wires, so and you're cutting in and splicing. And I thought, well, why can't I just put them on the seat? So I did. I put it there. On the side of a BM seat, there was some panel or some moulding which looks like probably should have had a switch in it, but I used that. So this circular moulding was already there. I just drilled a 20mm hole and popped the switch straight in. 3 minutes work. Put the cable around here. It means all this extra cable can get wired under the seat. There's the relay, that gets wired under the seat as well. It's all nicely in there, it's solid, just tie your wraps in, and out of the back, I've fitted this connector in, actually. Now all I need to do is to supply power to the seat, and everything's contained on the seat. You've got the relay, the switch, the wiring, it's just power. So that makes life so much easier. The only downside is that you don't have this on your dashboard, but I don't suppose it's going to be that, well, at least you don't have a light that's shining in your face when it's on, and I don't suppose it's much hassle just to reach down and turn it on and off. Now one thing I was thinking of course, is that you don't want to leave your heated seats on, because I'm going to connect this directly to the battery. But I have bought one of these things, which is just a standard, they call them voltage controlled relays. So basically I've set this relay so that it will only turn on when it's the battery's at 13 volts, which is predominantly when the engine's running. So even if we leave the seats on, as soon as you turn the engine off, the battery goes below 13 volts, the seats automatically turn off anyway. So that's my solution. So I'm actually just going to go and nip out and take the passenger seat back out the car that I've put back in, and do exactly the same fit. I'll put the console back in while I'm at it. We've just whipped out the passenger seat, getting so good, get them out now. It's under 3 minutes to get the whole seat out. And what I've done actually is I did notice that the bolts were a little bit, they don't get rusty obviously because they're sort of like plated, but I thought we'd give them a quick spray. Seems we've got a bit of time blacking them off, and I noticed there's a steel, some of the runners are looking a bit, I might give them a bit rusty, I might give them a bit of spray. Anyway, that's what I found on the side, and that's what I'm gonna, so all this wiring loop, which will get hidden under the seat, and there's the switch that's going to go in there. So that was my solution. So what I've done is I've just started off with a pilot hole that unfortunately wasn't quite in the centre actually, but it doesn't matter actually, because I've got this big drill. This is an 18mm drill, and I'm going to drill it out with to 18mm, and then I will use my trusty file to get it out to 20mm and make sure it's perfectly centralised. Okay, so there's my hole filed out. Not too bad, and then my switch is just going to slot straight in, I hope. And that's just going to push in there in a minute. Let me just put the camera down and push it in. Okay, so one switch in, and not quite central, but I don't suppose that's really going to matter. You hardly see it. So, so now we're going to put all this wiring underneath. But also what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount the this voltage controlled relay underneath as well. So because it doesn't really come with a fixing holes. I don't know who made this, but what you thought you're going to stick it to something with some double-sided tape, or like a sticky pad. But it's a shame it doesn't have like tie wrap holes in it or something like that. But anyway, it's going to get stuck and tie wrapped underneath as well. I might try and stick it so that I can still access the potentiometer to change the voltage should that ever need to be happen. So I might see if I can sort of stick it facing forward, so at least I can change it in situ. So that's the plan. Anyway, I just thought I'd just test the voltage control relay just to make sure it's set to the right voltage. So what I want it to do is to go on at about 13ish volts and turn off at sort of 12.5. So you can see here that for a maypole relay, this draws quite a bit. This is drawing 6 milliamps. That's a fair old bit. It's continuous. I don't see why it has to draw that much. I would have thought 1 milliamp might be sufficient, but it's only the comparator circuit in there that's active all the time, and 6 milliamps is 6 milliamps. So anyway, so let's just turn it on, and what will happen is as soon as the relay cuts in, you'll see this power supply the current drawn will go up to 120 milliamps, something like that. So we'll just slowly turn it up. 12.3, 12.4, 12.5, 12.8, 9, 13. Oh, there it goes. So it's about what, 13.2ish. And let's turn it down because there'll be a bit of hysteresis on this. Hopefully, stop it chattering. So down it goes, nice and slowly, because there's probably a bit of capacitance in there. We just want that to decay. Oh, there it goes. So anyway, so what was that? 12.4 it went out on. So let's just wind it up again, nice and slowly. There we go. So 13.1 it clicked in. Going down. Oh, and 12.5 it clicked out. That's not bad actually. So as long as it's above 12.5 volts, it should, well, as long as it goes above 13 volts, which I'm pretty certain it will do when the car starts up. Great. So no adjustment needed on that. Obviously maypole set them up pretty well as they leave the factory, so that's good. But anyway, that's it. And to be honest, with these things, these relays are brilliant. You can put anything where you can't get access to like a switched power supply in the car, and you want to just connect something straight to the battery. These things are fabulous because you just put them in circuit and they just work great. Okay, that's it. Okay, so all the wiring's done now, and I've just connected up to the power supply again. So I've finished the passenger seat now, buttons in, everything's wired up. I've even wired this the voltage control relay up at the front here, so that should I ever need to change the setting on that, I'm hoping I can, you can get a screwdriver into that hole there from underneath without having to take the seat out. And everything's in, it's all nice and tight, everything's good. So the idea is that we're going to have power coming from actually the back of the cigarette lighter, because these seats are not, they only draw about 3 amps. So both seats on, that's only 6 amps. Well, that's well in the capability of the capacity of the cigarette lighter. So which I think is 15 amps actually, and we never plug anything into that thing anyway, so, well, except for maybe a phone charging phone. Anyway, so that means we don't have to do anything. It'll connect into the back of the console where the cigarette lighter is. So there's a connector for that, which I've just put this temporary lead on just to connect to the power supply. But the idea is it comes out of the back of the console, the cigarette lighter, goes into this seat here. So there's an input here. It goes into the control relay, comes back out of the control relay, one goes to this seat, and then there's another wire here that comes out and goes all the way over to the other seat. So that's it. And as you can see, turn the seat on, so that's full seat, and we're drawing 3.5 amps at 14.3 volts. And I can move that down to single heat, and we're drawing about 1 amp at 14. So it's interesting. I don't know how they do this. Well, I thought they wire the pads in series and parallel, but I don't know how. It's not quite half. It's odd that, but anyway, doesn't matter. So that's it. And yeah, so obviously seats off. It's drawing, well, 100 milliamps it's drawing because the voltage control relay is still in the latch state. And what you'll see is as the voltage goes down, the relay will click off. There you go. So now we're drawing the 5 milliamps, which is just the sensor circuit on this relay. And of course, no seats now because the voltage is down. So if we put this up to 12 volts, the relay hasn't come on, so this relay hasn't switched, and we've got no seats, which is great. And if we click it onto the relay, clicks on, which is simulate the battery charging. There we go, 13.8 volts. And we should have seats, yes. And what will happen is if I wind the voltage down here, you'll see voltage going down 13.2, 13, and there you go. So even if you leave the seats on, it will automatically turn off anyway. So what do you do? And it'll turn off at 12.9 watts, so basically it's going to turn off when you turn the engine off, when it stops charging. Well, so all that's left to do now is to just wire up the console and we're done. Put the seats back in. Right, seats in then. Okay, so all the seats are back in now. Everything wired up. All went in a treat, no problem at all. As you can see, electric seats are working. That's on double, that's on single. What I have noticed actually is when you have it on double, you get a little glow off the side of the back, which is great because you can just see that it's on when you're in the car. But it's you know, I presume when it's dark it'll be light. And what I was worried about is sticking it on the dashboard. It may not have worked. I think it probably would have, but and having a bit of light pollution in the car. Down there works a treat. You slide your hand down, just click it on. Absolutely perfect. So that's that. So if I kill the engine, the seat should cut off immediately. There you go. No problem at all. And if I get him to start it, I don't know if I can do this properly. Let's see if I can do this. But yeah, we can see this. So if I start the car, I suspect the seats won't come on immediately because the battery voltage just needs to climb up. We'll try it. There you go, so it's off. And there you go. So that will work straight. So now I'll be able to sit in my car and everything's gone back together nicely. Passenger seat. And well, that is it. So finished.